I'm not going to lie, I really love my new intro. I really do love it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Behind the Cards. I am your host, Bobby Fierro. You can call me Bobby. Today, I am joined by Tarotaskbackwords himself, Jeff Bailey. I can't wait to hear the story on how you started that name.
There's a big story on that one. There's like 3 different angles from which I approach it, and it's all within the title. But I'll let you lead the way when you're ready.
Okay. Well, waiting for people to pop in now. Hi, we've got Joe. Hello. Fatima.
Hi,
What's
Fatima.
up? Julianne, one of my favoriteest people.
Oh, yes.
Oh, look who's here.
Hi, Ramon.
Mr. Ramon. Ramon, I do need to talk to you about that show idea I sent you. All right, so in here we have Selena, Essence of the Moon herself. Selena was on here yesterday. We got to hear the full life story. Well, not the full life story, but I was honored she opened up to us that way. Who else we got? Ramon, Janet. Everin Fierro. Harmit. Look at we got everybody showing up for you, Jeff. Everybody wants to hear your story. That's awesome. Okay, so everybody, you've seen the show before, and if you haven't, let me explain quickly what we do. I believe that everybody has a story, every single person, and I love to hear these stories. So I started interviewing people in the spiritual community with a primary focus on tarot cards. And I asked 22 questions with follow-up questions sometimes based on the 22 major arcana cards. And today, our victim is Jeff Bailey. How you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing well, and I'm not at all hesitant because I know you've got the gentle touch everywhere.
Yeah, I do, babe. Hey, Karen, how you doing, though? Yeah, I've got hands of magic. What can I say? Oh, the questions. Yes, I do ask good questions. Thank you. We're gonna start while people trickle in. Holy moly, we got a full house for you, bud. So at the end, we will be opening the floor up for questions also. So if you have a follow-up question you would like to find out more about, please make a note of it. Hey, Ange, how you doing, love? All right, so Jeff, we're going to start off with our first card, which is the Fool. And the Fool symbolizes new beginnings, innocence, purity, adventure, and rebellion. Where did your journey begin, either spiritual or physical?
Physical? If we're talking enjoyment, it was probably when I was 12. But bumping a rug. That was how I got off. So thinking about men. But getting back to this, at that time we were all boys. But getting back to this, and that's all I've done. That's all I've done since. No. I would say the spiritual journey started more from the standpoint of my writing, and having written the third book is supposedly in production, but my publisher is not moving fast enough for my tastes, but maybe they're doing it right this time and I'm not being scammed. But I just started asking questions about God and the world, and I would use certain phraseology, if you will, to kind of tie in those doubts about God and humanity and free will and all of that stuff, and use those as kind of my gimmick. And I had been writing since probably 2000, but with a real sense that freely writing with skill probably since about maybe 2010, 2011. And then I tried to go on Instagram and sell my book. And of course, I was victimized by all kinds of people that were bookstagrammers, all of whom would promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars through the idea that all these reviews you need to have for, search engine optimization, whatever. But at the same time, I was putting all that together before COVID. In 2018, I got into tarot readings because I'm big into the political reads, and I was working as a fundraiser for the Democratic Party in 2015 to 2018. And in 2018, I discovered Scott's Spiritual Essence, but the first YouTube reader that I discovered, because it was so much easier, Bobby, than reading all these Politico articles and reading all these other articles all the time. It was lighter, and you could, remember stuff. And I was pretty good at fundraising. I'm not bad at it at all. In fact, I like it better than what I do now. But what I do now pays more. But I loved Truth Warrior Tarot's readings. Now she's gone full. Well, you'd have to watch her channel, but she opened me up to Scott's Spiritual Essence, who was reading with Denise Knight, who's a big influence on me. If you watch her videos and the cards that she uses, she's on YouTube, Denise Knight Divination. Her lessons taught me how to read. I'm very good at assimilating a textbook meaning of a card, and then I'm also very good at the synthesis with cards, because to me, especially with Lenormand and the Knighting, that's where she was really strong, and she was really, really good about explaining what the textbook meaning is. But then, like with literature, it can have layer upon layer of meanings. And then when you throw all the Lenormand cards together, you can get 5 different readings of many more possibilities than you can get through tarot, to me, because in tarot, you're going to get energy. You're going to get an energy read on something or somebody more than you're going to get a situation or a fortune. So that's why I've been gearing toward, in a political read, using the Kipper or using the Lenormand, So coming back to your original question, I would say if it weren't for Donald Trump, in some ways, I wouldn't be a reader right now, because all that push and pull and all that other controversy stuff. And of course, more people get more hits on the political than I do. I do better with live energy, and I wish I could do more lives, but as I'm getting older, I'm finding it harder because it's not, I hate to use the word draining as a reader, but anybody that knows it knows they get a real rush while doing it. And then when that rush is subsiding or you're done, kind of that new beginning, that purity, that adventure, all that stuff that's in the Fool card, that kind of that adrenaline rush, all of that adventure is, you find yourself kind of wired, and you're not sleeping, you're not centered. You know what I mean? So I wish
it's an exercise.
Go ahead. It's an exercise. Yeah, it is.
And it tires you out. You can only do jumping jacks for so long before you start fatiguing.
Yeah. And of course, the thing with that is, sometimes within those readings, I believe that the live energy speaks to more than what you're giving. And so the rewarding part could be, you could be reading on someone else or 4 different people at the same time, but everybody's collective energy weaves into that. And I think in the live experience, you're going to get something that you're not going to get from a simple Lenormand reading, because you're going to be more driven. Because I do get hits off things, like with that rug. When I told you I was hearing a rug around you, I do.
That was funny.
Yeah, I do
Okay,
sometimes
tell everybody
feel
what we're
like,
talking about here.
well, I was reading for Bobby, and it was on my channel. It was about a week ago or a little more. And I think Bobby was just saying there was either some sort of renovation or something, but I'm like, why am I seeing a Persian rug right now?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that I had just pulled up the rugs out of my dining room and living room, and rolled them up and took them outside because the cats had urinated all over them. And so when he was talking about rugs, I said, "They should take the rugs out." He's like,
yeah.
"No, you're making that
I'm
up."
like, you've got to be making that up. When people tell me that, or like, I'm like, I'm seeing a windmill, or I'm seeing this. I don't
No,
know when
I
they.
was like, as I was looking around, I'm like, "Yes."
Well, you see, it's that thing too about, some people are clairaudient, clairsentient, whatever, or they hold the
Uh-huh.
item in their hand and they get the energy off it. I kind of feel like, for some reason, where it bounces
Right.
telepathically, I have that ability.
I've
Yeah,
noticed that when I'm reading for people who also read or are gifted readers in another field, it's a lot easier. It really is. If I'm reading for somebody that really has no psychic ability or no empathic abilities to speak of, um, it is a little
it's
harder to
harder.
pry those doors open, to just slip through their cracks in their shielding and get in there. Our next question is the magician, and he represents manifestation, creation, communication, and building something. Was it difficult for you to start communicating to the world around you that you had a very spiritual side?
Yeah, because I didn't believe I ever really did. Even when I started, well, before I started reading cards, or before I started realizing everything that I was questioning in my writing was very, and it's
Keep
very
talking,
one,
okay?
yeah.
Keep talking. I'll be back in a minute.
All right,
I
it's
can still hear you.
very one note the way I was writing, especially if you read my first book. It's almost as if one poem could flow into the other, and the tone would be the same for pretty much most of it. Whereas in the second book, there was a lot about the intimacy of death and the urgency of death. Um, so to me, being in a position to switch gears and actually be writing two-thirds of a book about a father's death while it's happening made me realize that there is some sort of heart, mind, and soul connection to what I was doing. Plus, I was reading cards at that time that I was pulling, and they were very bad cards. So this was after I had assimilated, or started to assimilate, the textbook meanings of cards. So that's when I realized that between what I was seeing in visions, or what I would write about in visions, because that's in channel too, that's in channel form. So I would say probably knowing that it was a spiritual experience to write something down and then see it sometimes come to fruition in reality, that I was already channeling. Like, there's a line in my first book about life is a system of a disease, underestimated. And then, there are all these other references that could have been either about um, life is a hunger, but you'll starve anyway. And there are these things that we're worried about now, about food rationing and, all these things. So to me, it all connects. When I realized that I could tie the cerebral and I could tie the mystic together, was when I realized that I was spiritual. Because really, meditation and channeling and all those other things that we do, aside from the cards and the mechanics of knowing what the cards mean and what they would mean in a synthesis environment, regardless of the energy you're getting off of someone, is a totally different mindset from feeling into the energy and being comfortable with rocking back and forth and listening to what some entity is telling you. And I didn't realize I had entities until things like,
Right.
like what I told you, Bobby, that happened to me, where I could see a rug, or I could say this person, like, this is what I see. And they, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
it could be total chicanery or gypsy bullshit, but there is something even at that fundamental lower level that people would consider. There's something in the art of that craft that is not readily understood or appreciated for the value it has, and everybody has it. I'm sure of it. It's just you have to develop it, because I didn't think I had it, but I
Well,
developed it.
it's funny you say that. I was just talking to Selena about this yesterday about imposter syndrome. A lot of people I know
Hmm.
suffer from it. I suffer
Hmm.
from it. What if I say something wrong and everybody's going to point a finger and say fake, fake, fake? So once I got past that and started trusting myself, it was a different story. Um, you go back and watch my videos from when I started, it's funny. You can see me actually straining to try to use my gift. Thinking I had to push that hard. Well, I didn't know what to expect from YouTube. I'm doing readings for
Hmm.
people in Scotland, and it just freaked me out. And then I realized after a while, oh, you're calm your tits. You're pushing too hard.
Yeah, and that's the thing with it, is it's like, I do believe that there is some academic quality to it, but when you're so mired in what the cards mean by themselves, you don't feel into the energy of the person that you're reading about. Then
Yeah.
you lose that connection not only to yourself, because ultimately you're you're the conduit for their energy. Because I do believe, and this is a different thing, that if we're going to get energy, and it may be a third party energy, sometimes that's unavoidable, but that energy, is, for better or worse, tied to that person. So, like, I have to say it, and if I go too far, you have to tell me. Or sometimes I will hit a brick wall. I will feel someone tell me to stop, or I will feel like I'm banging my head against a wall. Then I know to stop.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't have the guideline or the boundary. It's just that, for me to know, it's getting back to your original question, that it's a spiritual endeavor, is to know that when it's flowing freely and it's flowing at a rate that's resonating with someone else, that's
All I
spiritual.
can
That's
say
an
is
exchange of energy. There's nothing more gratifying than that.
all I can say is that it feels different when I
It
call it
does.
other. You guys, everyone calls it spirit. I call it other. Um, it just feels different. I don't feel alone in my head. I don't feel in control sometimes. I have to honestly fight for control depending on who is trying to get a message through. I got hijacked during a reading one time by my client's spirit guide trying to get a message, and she didn't tell me that he was a shaman before we started because it felt it honestly felt like I was being taken over, and I did not like it. I wasn't scared. I was offended. I was like, "How fucking dare you? How rude!" You know, I was, and I told her that. Um, let's go on with the high priestess. The high
Oh God,
priestess
yeah.
represents intuition, mystery, and the subconscious mind. I like to read what I write. Um,
To me, this is, well. Go ahead. I want to approach
no,
it.
I,
Okay.
I want
Well, the
you
the
to
thing that
speak
came to
freely.
mind with this is that it's I feel like on some level the high priestess kind of rules the moon in a way. It's this weird thing where it's like, getting back to what we were talking about before, about how the connections are made and where they come from. I kind of
Uh-huh.
feel like that's all of what we do, and I don't think it's by accident, but yet in a way it is, because what what kind of person would stumble on the fact that you were playing, that you were moving rugs that day? Or
Mm,
what kind of person would know that
that was funny as fuck. I'm
someone had a windmill that did this, or someone, rode horses when they were a child? So to me, when that card comes into symbolism and tarot, what I really believe it means especially if it's reversed, is this unavoidable sort of loud energy that overtakes you and really is mired in
Loud energy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas even the higher energy that the high priestess might mean to some people, almost like the Hierophant, where there's some sort of higher dictation or some sort of resonant message. I kind of feel like in this case, it's not a message in the sense that it's always honest and clear to you, because it's not merely cerebral. Like I said, it's almost otherworldly, because where you're funneling this information from a higher level to give to someone else or yourself, you can't make heads or tails of where it's coming from. So that's what I think of that card. And then, I know that a lot of times higher knowledge is often tied to divinity or tied to the spiritual, but I kind of feel like that card in its silence is more about the mysticism of the practice that we partake
Yeah.
in, or whatever you want to call it. And then when it's reversed, it's almost something that's already happened, or some sort of perversion of it to where you can't get to that spiritual level because it's louder, or it's a lower level of knowledge, meaning it's coming almost from, and it's weird, even though the gut is, you get a feeling in your gut and that's intuitive, it's coming from a place even a little more sinister sometimes than maybe you realize, but you're still getting that lower level energy, or maybe you're around somebody who attracts that kind of energy. But it's a very loud, inescapable type of message that it's not meant to be as pronounced and as obnoxiously wild as it is. But that's what I see when I think of it reversed. And I think a lot of readers, and I'm guilty of it too, go to what's called confirmation bias, where we mix, and that's kind of a perversion in the reverse of that card, because confirmation bias to me is nothing more than, and it happens in political reads all the time, what you want to see versus, of course, what you don't. And when there is that perversion of the intuition, then it becomes almost like Knight of Wands or Knight of Swords energy, where it's, really reversed. It's ideologically perverted, or it's ideologically based. It has aimless, right? Because it's not grounded in what you're really seeing. It's grounded in what you're being led to. So, there's that fine line between being led to something, and there's that line where, you're being led to it. But why are you being led to it? And that's what that's what all of that stuff means. Intuition combined with mystery, combined with the subconscious. I feel like that is really a hard card for a lot of people to read in contextual terms when you're giving someone a reading, because I think the inflection of that card comes more from a lot of what's around it than it is by itself, because it's so hard to define.
That's where my spirit guides come in. I get what you're saying, and yes, definitely, I look at the cards around it. Or in my case, I do an astrology spread, the zodiac, just like this behind me with the 12 cards. And I look across to see what the card is also, not just next to it, to see what either balances or challenges it. When I get it reversed, it is depend on what's next to it.
Yeah. And I think it's the type of point where, and especially in a Celtic cross, and what house it lands to, because that's the danger. I'm a big fan of the Celtic cross reading. A lot of people are. But the danger in that is if you only know that particular, for me, I'm really trying to learn more structural things than just the Celtic cross. But if you,
I'll teach you a badass spread after we get
you know what I mean?
Causalina.
Because like that's all. It's a one-trick pony, you know. And unfortunately, there is a certain level of contrived BS in that too, because
Right.
you know, if this is in the past position and we're defining something about that is going to happen, and then we think this is the near future, this is the, you know, the energy we're sitting in or the way others see us, this is the external influence on top of us, this is the hope and fear, blah blah. It's almost like when you're learning to write in high school. You're learning to write in high school and you have outlines, or I used to be like that when, you know, you might take an English achievement exam and everything you scrutinize about what you're writing, and you're so contrived and you're so hung up on like how it has to read. This is how this is, and everything is linear. Well, guess what? Nothing's linear in this realm. So why should I be adhering to a Celtic cross with all of its what do you call it? Imposition.
I have other spreads for linear. If I want to see the unfolding of something, about other spreads for that. I really do not like using the Celtic cross. I never have.
I've noticed that. Yeah. I've never seen you really do it. Yeah.
Never. Well, I have a friend who swears by it, and it works for her, and great groovy, and she's an awesome, awesome reader. Hi, Belle. But I can't. I haven't been able to read with Celtic Cross since I was about 15 years old. It's just not something that I can vibe with.
The more I get more involved in it, and when I see readers who are really practiced doing it, I think it does them a disservice, because they've outgrown that structure, and they're far better.
It's what I call it's a what about spread.
I mean, I'll do it.
But, it'll say certain things, but then I have questions. Well, what about this, or what about that? It doesn't tell me very much.
You know? Right. And or they lay out. I mean, and of course, too, there are different ways you can approach it. Like, you know, something can land in the same house it would land in if you did the Celtic cross, but the meaning of that house might be something a little different for someone else.
The reason I like the Zodiac spread is because I could read the 12 signs of the Zodiac, I could read the 12 houses, I could read the 22 cards of the major arcana, I could read the 22 Hebrew letters, I could read the planetary and the Zodiac. It's such a good spread. I just love it.
It is. And there's also that tie between numerology and tarot and the hierarchy of the cards and the court cards, and all of it does tie together, which is a fascinating thing. But really, to have the grasp of the astrology, or know, you know, what certain cards are ruled by as far as planets, all that matters. You know, I was reading on Curtis Yarvin just a few weeks ago, that leader of the Dark Enlightenment, that he was a blogger, Meniscus Moldug or whatever. He's on the far right. He wants to enslave people and have corporate feudalism and all this other stuff. And so I got in just getting into the card a bit here. I got the and he, you know, he got the Knight of Swords in the sitting in position now, and it wasn't reversed. The challenge when a card is really bad for someone, as far as what they like, because that card to me is about ideology that's perverted. So when it's upright, it's just aimless energy that's not going anywhere. If it came in and it's the energy he's sitting in, in one sense, if it's upright, I feel like I should be, or as if I should have read it in the reverse, because when I really thought about the textbook meaning of the card, it defines how that sort of mentality is informing a lot of people, how we might be cashing in on the ideology, all these other things I didn't think about at the time, simply because of the restriction of the Celtic cross. And that if you get it upright and you're sitting in it, it's aimless energy. It's going nowhere. Yet if it's reversed, it's a lot more sinister. It's a lot more, you know, because you see the wind card. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's almost like I've seen people do this where they will read the reverse of meaning of the card in the upright. You know what I mean? Like they get the upright and they
Yeah,
feel the reverse of it.
yeah, it
That's
can
just as
happen. I
valid. Yeah.
rarely do that, but sometimes I feel that that card should have been. Just my guides are saying that that should be the other way.
In the
Very,
reverse. Yeah.
very, very rarely will I switch it in my head. Um, the Knight of Swords. I live in a border town and next to an army base. Yeah, I do. Um, sometimes they jog down the street and you just sit there and watch it. But the cool thing about this town is when I get the knight or the king, any sword really in the court, it's military for me.
Hmm.
That is police, military, or border patrol. It's just this town is chock full of them, so they get their own court.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So the Empress, back to this lady. Um, what since we're talking about different aspects of the cards, the Empress is related to the word dalet, meaning door, for the Hebrew letter. Um, what was your gateway into spiritualism?
Um, you see, what was my date with spiritualism?
Gateway. What was
Oh,
the
my
gateway
gate.
drug for you?
What was my gateway through it? Writing, probably writing. Only because in writing, a lot of times through the subconscious, you're, as I said, you're channeling things, but you don't know the weight or the gravity of what you're going to be channeling. And as I say, getting back to the cards and getting back to this idea that spirituality is not linear and time is something that is transcendent, or we transcend
Right.
time. Sometimes you're going to get messages that almost the words are like gibberish. It might be like speaking in tongues, right? The way some people do. So, my gateway was being able to channel things that I think are happening now without realizing it.
Right.
And going back, oh, this has a different resonance than it did now. Um, there was a poem I wrote called The Workforce, which is very plainly bland on the surface of it. And then I went back and read it. They want your blood. Something like that. They want your blood, yet you'll starve anyway. Your lifeblood, da da da. And it's kind of like
Uh-huh.
what we're going through now. So politically, you know, I think my gateway into spirituality was the first time that I put pen to paper and just free float it, and things would just come
Have
out,
you
and
ever tried automatic writing?
I wouldn't know where. Yeah, I wouldn't know where they were coming from. It was automatic writing, but it would, and I know I didn't set out to be a poet. It just came that way. And then sometimes now it's almost like it's not poetry in isolation. Like it's almost like it's conversational or dialoguing with myself through poetry. And
Mhm.
that's even more spiritual because there's the stuff I'm trying to clear out, or the stuff that I haven't necessarily, I've dealt with it routinely, but now I'm asking deeper questions than I was before. So,
I'm
and
ashamed of
yeah,
something on myself. You keep talking about writing, and it's gonna drive me crazy if I don't say it. I'm ashamed of something I did. I, for a long time, wrote poetry in low key in the background, as a lot of us do, and short stories. But anytime I showed them to somebody, I got really bad reviews because I was writing basically artful yet pornographic material. And what I'm embarrassed about isn't the material itself, it's that I let people put it in my head that I wasn't any good because it may not have been what they were expecting, but it was good. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
and that's the other thing about it. It's like with tarot, your voice grows the more you use it, and the more you say something to yourself, not just in affirmation form, but through the tone of your voice and the words. I was talking to someone about this, and he kind of schooled me, and reminded me about why as empaths or as healers we do what we do. And it's true, because the incantation of something is more important than actually what is said. And by that, I mean the rhythm of things, whether they rhyme or not, you know.
mhm.
And that goes for cards too, because seemingly disparate meanings of things that are laid out from versus what you're getting, it's disparate. What you're getting from the energy, it comes through, but you don't know where it comes from. So getting back to this whole Empress thing, I really feel like, you know, the spirit is rife with possibility, but even more than the spirit being rife with possibility, you're rife with either spirit or more guides than you know around you that actually can funnel that message through you, in different ways. And if we just took the time to grasp it, and I've been rejecting it lately because I haven't really been focusing on it as much, and I notice that when I don't, I suffer because I'm more trapped in the 3D and the political mindset.
Mhm.
But I'm like I'm like a routine person. I have to be watching five different, people with their own, independent political voices on each,
That's
all in the Democratic
sell
Party.
it.
And a lot of it's clickbait because, it
Yeah.
looks like something bad. You know what I mean? That you're going to find revelatory, and then you get in there based on the picture, and it's nothing. So that is a
Yeah.
form of, that we do to ourselves. It kind of comes back to what you were saying about, them telling you weren't good. It's almost like you feel like you get suckered in by a gimmick or what somebody tells you, and then you're going down a rabbit hole. And I
I'm
think
getting better at avoiding clickbait.
if you
When I
can
go to
if you
click
can
on it, I
create
stop myself.
if you can create your own rabbit holes through your own imagination, and
Yeah.
through the relaxation and the meditation, those are the best rabbit holes, because you will come up with readings, and you will come up with things, and you'll ask questions that won't be necessarily clickbait, and it won't get a lot of clicks, but at least it will be authentically your, and this is where the Empress comes in, your unexplored way to grow, because you're asking a question that kind of mirrors something that you're wanting, not just wanting to know, but is
Mhm.
informed by what your spirit guides are telling you to pursue. So that's how I
Okay.
see it. Yeah.
And the Emperor?
The Emperor, um, I go back and forth on this one, because to me, in the upright, it's it's got this horrible connotation. I am an Aries, I am a fire sign. Um, but when I had my chart done, my astrology chart, I'm a 7 in a life path, so I'm a 3-4-7. One was the chariot ruled by Cancer, and the other was, I can't remember what the other one was. I think it might have been I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is that, this this duality of being an emperor, being in your own power, is something that I struggle with, because to me, the connotation that you can be in your own power and it can actually be a good thing, when we see all kinds of perversions of it every day, or different renditions of it that are considered good. I find that card an interesting one to read, because it almost now becomes a caricature of itself where it has no meaning. Does that make sense? I mean, I it's like you assign a meaning to something, it has a connotation, good or bad, right? But then all of a sudden, contextually, even if it's not in a political read, if it's somebody else, and you're
Well,
reading it, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it
I
becomes a
do.
yeah,
The thing with me is my teacher when I was a wee lad, um, the first one I had taught me to associate tarot cards with people, um, not just the court cards, every card. The Emperor I associate with people, that I went to school with and have known throughout time. It's just built up more and more people. So when I read the Emperor card or any of the cards, depending on who comes to mind when I look at the card, tells me what kind of energy I'm dealing with. Whether it was that asshole kid in high school or the first guy I ever met, or it could be a lot of different people. So
right.
it could be a lot of different situations. It's just what comes to mind at that point. It's still the same card. It's just everything has a different vibe.
Yeah, and I think again, I feel like it's more a feeling than it can be a person to some people because and that's not necessarily wrong.
Yeah, a
But
thing,
yeah,
a vibe, a person. Any card can be any of those things.
hmm
Um,
yeah,
and I
and
think that's what people don't realize is it's not just the court cards that can be people. Any card can be people energy.
hmm
Really
hmm
can. If you're in a
yeah,
reading, um, how often do we do live readings and we pull a card and somebody says, "Oh my gosh, let's talk about my husband," or something similar to that. So that's a thing I have. I can go on for a long time about that. Uh, I like this. I was planning on asking you a whole bunch of different questions, but getting your opinion on these is fascinating. So let's keep going. What
okay.
about the Hierophants?
Another one. Okay, so government on one hand, or higher a house of higher learning, or again the whole idea of object versus person, or
Hmm.
ideation of government or ideation of higher learning, and because when it's reversed it's rebelling against it, but is it really though? In other words, your own
Agreed.
personal your own personal definition of what that card means in the upright might be going against the grain and be positive, right?
Hmm.
So to me, is it the fixtures and the impositions again? Is it like is it contextually something that externally is an imposition on you, but when it's reversed, you're rebelling from it? Or when it's in the upright, is it that good higher form of learning?
Or it
Or,
could be
yeah,
just being on the outside of
right,
tradition,
right.
being rejected by your peers or
Right.
church or whatever.
And that can be a positive, but then people would say, well, that if it were reversed, then, you're rebelling from it. So either that's bad, but yet if it were upright, as you say, it has the connotation it should. But to some people, see, I think people are going to read it in the upright or the reverse the same way in some cases. That's
Hmm.
why reading reversals is really, I think, more informed by the cards around it. I don't know.
This card, more than any other card, has a variety of meanings for me. And when I say a variety of meanings, I mean totally different. Like there's the normal meaning tradition. Um, there's the Taurus meaning immovable, your finances, money.
Hmm
Um, there's the Hebrew vav, nail, the joining of two things. I love tarot, but it can be fucking confusing at times. And
hmm
this card here is the one that drives me batty. It really is, because there's so many emotions tied in with it. Um, since it does represent church, I one of my foster families was just unpleasant because they were very involved with church and I was very gay. Um, so it has that association for me also. Um, but yeah, I try to keep it positive when I get this card in any card. But whether it's reversed or not, there's that negative connotation with me. I can't, I'm not going to even deny it.
Mhm. That's the thing too, is, words are everything in tarot, because I have seen different renditions of, like, say, the four of coins. Um, when it's reversed, it can mean excessively holding on to something, or
Yeah.
unable to part, or it's excessive. I mean, it's excessive greed, okay, or it's profligate spending. So which is it?
See, for
So
me, it's you're so concerned about your being seen as being rich because of the Capricorn
right,
aspect.
right, and none of these are wrong.
Yeah.
None of these are wrong, but yet you can go on, and I do, because I can think of right now one, two, probably about five different readers, most of whom are female, that are brilliant readers, but they all diverge on the meanings of cards, and some are a little bit more elaborate in their interpretations, and it
Oh yeah.
makes for a better read. And I can see why they have 20,000 subscribers. I can see why, on some level, it resonates, because there is this idea that, like, when you ask a question, it's kind of like in math, and you get like a null set, you get nothing, but it doesn't disprove or prove something. If you're reading the cards the wrong way, or you're not getting the energy that you want to pick up on, you might read it that way. But there's this one reader on YouTube, Ellie Dreams Down Under, and she reads a lot on the same sort of phenomenon about the Hopi prophecy and all these things. And it is in the Celtic style, but her having read for 30 years or whatever, and being so, and she only uses one deck, and she uses the traditional Rider-Waite. Brilliant reader, like, beyond
I'm
words
jealous
good.
of people that can do
Yeah.
that because I need to write a frickin' novel every time I sit down to do a reading. I can't just say this is going to happen. I have to build scenery and bring in extras to try
Yeah.
to, if I'm doing a
And
full
that's a
reading
good
for
thing.
somebody.
That's a good thing, because if you're getting that, then you're getting the energy of the person. You're not just getting the forced energy of the card. I mean, yeah, it's as you said in the beginning, some people are harder to read than others. Um, and that could just be a function of not knowing them. But even still, I think the more you know about someone, the harder it is to read on them, because not
Speaking of reading, let me stop you right here because I got to
okay.
know who was the first person you read for? We have the Lovers card here.
Who's the first person I read for? Hmm. Mm, I don't know. I don't know. It was someone in a chat. I wouldn't know who it was.
Do you
It was on.
remember how you felt during that reading?
Um, Empowered. Actually, it's very strange, because uh, who every reading I had done before that, I had done for myself for my channel, and it was usually political. And then when I started to get into the energy of other people, I didn't think I had that ability. I actually have a better ability than I do with the political, I think. So um, it felt empowering. It wasn't readily done on this channel, on the show I was on the weekend. It was a different type of show. I think you've read with this person too, but when it was done, and I got feedback that it resonated. Holy hell, I felt so good. I felt so good from that. So I don't remember who it was.
I'm not gonna lie, it does. It used to, well, when I first started out, it made me feel validated, definitely, but I felt more comfortable that I was giving right knowledge to
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
That's what made me happy, you know.
And
So, but I didn't
that's the
really
thing about
focus
it.
on that too
It's like,
much.
if I'm gonna bomb, and there are times I am bombing where I am just like throwing, whatever against the wall, and it's perceived as whatever's sticking. But there isn't anything that we're not meant to say at the time.
Exactly.
We're supposed to say it,
You're
and
supposed to say it. They were supposed to be here to hear it.
yeah, you were
You
supposed to
know.
come on live tonight. I was supposed to be here. I
Yes,
mean, I do believe that. I know I'm not a big free will person because I kind of feel like it's a painting, it's a mosaic, and everything's already written, and then there's a beginning and then there's an end to it. And that's how I feel like creator sees the world. But when something is faded, it's more beautiful because even though it's encapsulated in time, it was not removed from that mosaic that was supposed to be, yet it's fundamentally your experience within that mosaic. So when everything seems humdrum and that you're able to transcend that energy and actually put something out that actually resonates with someone else, that's a very beautiful thing. But it doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen in a reading all the time. So but that doesn't stop you from trying it. And it's not that you're trying, because if you're trying, on top of the energy that you are getting that is legitimate, you will burn yourself out. You will.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. I stopped trying so hard after a couple
Hmm.
months of trying to wring myself dry with every session. Um, it was actually my aunt, and she passed a long ass time ago. She's one of my guides. It was my aunt, and just the one sentence, "Don't you trust us?" That was it. That was
Yeah.
it.
And that's the thing about this too, is that there's something where, you're guided to come on certain nights and you don't know why. Or you do get a download and you're guided to come on, and you know what, that download seemed so superfluous, or you get a muse from a title or a word, and you did come on and you actually helped somebody. So, or you're sitting and waiting and no one's coming in, and then you give up, and then they start coming in when you're about to leave. So all these
Yeah, well,
things
always.
are tricks, and it's our tricking ourselves, and that manifestation comes through in the projection, that we give of ourselves on camera or through our own energy. So trying to be centered enough to be humble, and yet trying to be authentic and good at what you're doing is
Yeah,
another juggling act
it's a,
here,
yeah,
because
it is.
yeah,
It
beyond the whole
is.
thing about giving positive messages, what do you do when you're not centered yourself, but you want to
I
be?
fall back to basics. I
Yeah.
fall back to numerology. When I'm reading and I can't get a hit on something, I will fall back to basics and the general card meanings. Um, and you'll hear me say things like, this card to me means, instead of my guides are telling me that. Um, it's a little different thing. Then I'm falling back on basic numerology.
Hmm.
What you said a while ago about tiring out, and you don't know why you go on, but you do it, and it's meant to get a message across.
Hmm.
This happened just the other day when I was doing lives, and you go back and watch my recent videos, but I don't know who I was talking to, but as I'm reading, it's just clear, and it was different than all the other readings I was doing. And you hear me tell her, I think this whole night of me being alive was so you could hear this. So please pay attention. Um, but the thing is, after that message, I had to basically fall back on general meanings because it was like, okay, click, I, your job is done for the night. But I still had other people to get through. So
Mm-hmm.
that was basic, well, not basic numerology, then animal guides, spirit guides, but the whisper was different. I don't know if that makes sense. It
No, it
just
does,
wasn't.
because it's what's beckoning you at the time, and ultimately, what is going to beckon you is going to beckon them. This is just an exchange of energy, but it's the type of energy where someone's down here and you're here, or you're here. Even though you might be on the same level, you're not ever really on the same level. But that mutual, like boom, 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 that oscillating sort of force that's there, that you can't explain.
Hmm.
That's the whole gist of this. When people tell me that what I'm doing is rubbish, or that it doesn't have meaning, I can
Then
tell
don't
you
worry
that it
about it.
does. I can tell you that it does. I can tell you that there is something in mysticism that is real, and that sounds paradoxical or oxymoronic or whatever, but it does. Maybe we don't have the words for it to define it, and we can't empirically prove why it works.
Mm-mm.
But that's the idea. And for centuries,
You
it
can't tell
yeah,
me jack shit that
yeah.
energy isn't real, that spiritualists aren't real, that psychics aren't real. Yes, there's a lot of charlatans out there, um, but there's a lot of good people.
Hmm.
There really is.
And even
And
among the bad, there are people who are talented. You know what I'm
and
saying? Like,
even among the
yeah,
bad, they don't know that they may be being used to get a message across to
right. That's what
someone.
I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
and
And it's not for us to say who's good, who's bad. I know
right.
there's a lot of gatekeepers in our community that think certain people or whoever shouldn't read.
Hmm.
Um, that's fine.
Or they
People need to
define,
learn. Give them the chance to learn.
or they define in terms of the gates, who gets in, as you said, and who gets out, and what messaging, and the type of messaging that is going to get in or get out. And a lot of it is poppycock, because
Poppycock,
none of
that's
it's
it.
coming from a place where I'm not saying that my guides are better than anyone else's guides. I don't think that that's
Say it.
what's
Say
what.
it.
Well, I don't, though. But what I do think is going on is that there are people who are venerated, but they're not. They
Say
don't.
the word.
They don't approach it from the grounded standpoint. I feel like they are telling people what they want to hear.
I know some of them
Yet,
on. That's why I don't follow those channels.
but
Yeah.
when you're doing it in a political context, I guess there's something comforting about having a cookie, and or like in my case, popping a couple Klonopin and being like, okay. But when you're talking to someone in a personal reading, you've got to be careful between what you're not telling them and what you feel you should tell them, because
Yeah.
uh, there
Well,
is
I'll
that
tell
delicate
you
line
this.
where you might be picking up on something very dangerous, or very threatening, and yet at the same time too, that third party energy that comes back to that you're feeling, there may be some
Before
rationale.
anybody
Yeah,
answers,
yeah.
before anybody says anything like that, ask yourself. This is advice from an old fart who's been doing this for a while. Um, ask yourself, does this need to be said?
Right.
Does this need to be said
and
right now?
and
And
how
does
does it
this
need to
need to
be
be
said?
said
Yeah.
by me? Ask yourself these questions. And if any of the answers to those no, then shut the fuck up.
Hmm.
All right.
And that's
You,
that's where that's where this goes, because I need to make sure that I am centered enough, and I'm not calculated enough to where I am questioning all of that all the time, because I feel like in the political realm, they're doing that and things continue to get worse. Not because of them saying that it's going to get better, but I don't feel like you do anyone a service by um, uh, filtering your message. Yet by the same token,
I
too,
agree.
it's as you say. Does this need to be said by me now? And how do I
Yeah.
say this? Or if I
How are they
hold back,
going to receive
or
this?
how, if I pull back a little bit and I don't say it with the gusto with which I should, and then maybe you kind of feel them out a little bit, and then you go in, but
There are clients out there, I've said it before, who say, just tell me, be honest, say it straight out.
yeah, that's what
No,
I've got.
you don't
Yeah,
want me to. It sounds good on paper, but you really don't want me to do that. Trust me.
yeah, and or like you do it, and then you do get the feeling that, okay, I went to the trouble of doing this, and now you're never going to get a reading from me again because I told you what you didn't want to hear. Yet it resonated with you enough to where you were prodding me more. That's when
Yeah.
I get really frustrated, because I know I'm never going to see this person again. That intuitive part of me knows that I'm not, and they've never been in the chat again but once. So where you could develop, and this goes for people on in these political chats or whatever that they do so well in, there has to be something in the inverse, to where on the personal level it's not as tricky for them, but yet it would be trickier if they did it the way we do it. Like, I'm not trying to put them down, I'm trying to say that the collective energy is a less threatening prospect than the one-on-one energy when someone asks you a personal question, because
Yeah.
you're playing with someone's personal energy.
That's,
Potentially you're
I
bringing in
do.
third party energy. So, you know, yeah, I mean, you could
I
say the
do
world's going
stop
to
a
shit,
reading.
and you could say the world's going to be the greatest place, and it's going to be all gingerbread houses and wine and whatever. But the real danger is in the real readers that are serious are doing the personal reads like we do, because they're the people that are coming into this wanting these answers. They're putting their trust in their not even so much,
Yeah.
well, that too, they're investing the time in your ability because they know it resonates with them. So you know it's a more threatening prospect for the reader, but it's also a validation before you've even read that you have ability and that you
Some of
actually,
my
yeah.
favorite reading sessions um, are when I do positive negatives. I'll have somebody on my channel and they'll give the positive for a reading, and I will do the negative, the warning,
Mhm.
the the beware type cards. I love that. Uh, those are my favorite sessions to do because we're getting a well-rounded. Yeah,
Mhm.
go into the
Mhm.
season doing this or go into the week doing this, but beware. And if ever you're
Yeah.
feeling bad and down, try doing that. You'll make yourself laugh. Trust me, it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. And like it was like, when everyone was like, Trump's going to jail on all these channels. Like, no, he's not. He's never going to jail. And when I told people he was going to be president again, and the way I got the hit on that was when I was editing this book that's coming out. His poem, there were two poems about him. One of them landed in the 47th spot, Bobby,
Hmm,
by
of course
accident in
it
the
did.
manuscript. And guess what? I'm like, you know what? He's going to be president again. And even now, still, I get chills from it. So, the way we get our hits too is weird. When I got the hit on Israel, this is on my channel, it's time stamped. It wasn't fake. A month before Israel was attacked, I was there were two ways. I was reading the Lenormand, but I got a hit on. Can't remember if it was. Yeah, it might have been either the Star of David or Hanukkah or menorah. I kept seeing a menorah, Bobby. Right? I'm like, what the fuck am I seeing a menorah for in the middle of August or September? So then I start laying the cards out in the Lenormand, and very simply. And again, it's how one thing leads to another. The chance of just these cards could have come out. There weren't that many of them. The probability is probably pretty high. And then I just looked at the camera and go, is Israel about to be attacked? And it's in my menorah video, and Israel was attacked the next month. So, I'm saying that what we stumble into for energy, when it's not on a grander level, where we don't have a lot of viewers, that intimacy means a lot more than 500 viewers coming in for a political read. And I'm one of those viewers. I'm a junkie. I'll admit it. But what we do is a lot. I hate saying riskier, but it's a lot more.
You are right. There's
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I'm making any sense at this point. Yeah. I feel like the focus should be more on us and our ability than it should be on some sort of watered down, unadult or milquetoast rendition of what is in the current event cycle and what is going to be. I mean, let's be real. I mean, this arc we're in now politically, you can tell it from a lot of different angles, and you could be right. But it's harder to be right when you're playing with personal energy, because where are these hits coming from? And that's what's so much more validating in the lives with people who are sharing their energy with you. I was telling Stephen this, if he's still out there. And he got it because he can read me pretty well. And he's like, I know that this is what how you feel about it, and you really need to get back to doing lives and getting out of that hole that makes you focus on the political more. But that is where my skill is. It's better, with the energy and the push pull of, someone else that I'm reading for. So, I guess it depends on the skill of the person. And I guess it depends on where, not even so much your interests lie, but where you're vibrating and where the frequencies are. Because you're going to know
if you're the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
If you're vibrating at just the right frequency to pass the message to the person that needs to hear it at just the right time.
And that's why I feel that we are guided to come on spontaneously. I do, though, believe now more in scheduling lives and trying to curate times, and if
I'm working on that too.
Yeah,
I
do. I think that is important. And I didn't really see the value in it until you start having a value people who are investing time in you, because again, that time's energy. I understand that, but sometimes we just feel called to come on, but lately not so much. Like, I feel like the overriding energy politically, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen to this country. I mean, we just don't.
I know that nothing is going to improve until this happens. I tell people, think of it as a 5 spot. All the 5s in tarot are ruled by the Sephira Geburah, which is ruled by Mars, destruction. So we have to go through that destruction to find our balance again in the Sephira of Tiferet. Goes down. So this shakeup has to happen. We have to face our shadow side. This is it. This is the time where we're facing our shadow side. So buckle up, buttercups.
Yeah, well, that's and that's and that's what I feel like people aren't getting in those readings. They're not hearing it. They're being told, like, some people are feeling that in April he's going to be thrown out of office. And it's just the same thing all over again.
Even if he were thrown out of office, the damage is done. We've been shown
and I don't even think he's the biggest problem anymore. I feel like it's the dark enlightenment around him. I feel like he's the head of the snake, but I feel like
he's not smart enough to be dangerous.
I think that this was all choreographed and planned, and not just by him. I think that there are people. He's a good scapegoat for it.
I read a book one time that said, if you release a lion into a crowd, they'll be so focused on it they won't notice the mouse coming and biting you on the ankle.
Yeah.
I do agree that this is a distraction. Everything I've said it to anybody who will listen around me. It's a distraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the real damage by the time it's done, who knows? So
it's funny because I do split my time between tarot and political videos.
Do you? Yeah.
And Tyler Cohen, he's my favorite. He's my boy. He's so cute.
He's very cute. Yeah, he is. I like David Pakman.
Google his beach pictures.
Should I? Okay, yeah, I think it's gorgeous. I do.
Dirty old man.
He can look really, really good. His energy is
he's
really
smart.
Really
oh my gosh, he makes me think of politics in a different way. Anybody that can widen my frame of thinking, I appreciate. And him, the Midas Touch Network, all these channels, they give you facts and let you decide.
Kyle Kulinski, I'm high on right now a lot. Yeah. I think he's got swag. Kyle Kulinski. Yeah, I mean,
let's get away from the politics. And
why are we? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, why are we going down that rabbit hole? I know people watching us are going, "Shut the fuck up!" Let's talk about balance. Our next card is the Chariot. So, how do you balance yourself? I mean, you're very politically involved. I don't talk about it on air because I believe in escapism. You are drawn to that. I wouldn't be able to survive doing the type of readings you do when it comes to politics. How do you balance yourself?
To do the poetry prayers that I do at the beginning, so that they are objective, and I really am. And it's interesting that you asked that question now, because it's easy to be scared. So I will do whenever I do a reading, and it's collective. I try to do what's called a poetry prayer to clean the energy out. And what that is basically just off the cuff riffing based on the question that I have. Some sort of free verse, spoken verse that is detached, but it's asking the question in a way that is rhythmic or somewhat rhyme based, but it doesn't have it's free flowing. It's almost like when I'm getting messages from when I'm channeling, that way.
Right.
So, that's how I center myself, and that's how I make it objective as possible. Or, I will smudge. I mean, I do have my Palo Santo, and I do, clean out the energy around here, but I'm not really afraid of, what are they called? Intercessor energy, or whatever that is that comes in. But to stay grounded or to stay centered, I try to pull myself back and open myself up to the different sides of the possibility. In a lot of cases too, that might you might ask a question looking for a specific answer to that question, but what I've noticed is I will get an answer to a different question.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, especially with the Lenormand. So, that's why I much prefer lately, as far as for political reasons, Lenormand, because I feel
It's
there's
more
more
direct.
dimensionality to it, and it can be more direct, because if you read it, across, down, or you get, as the night from the knighting, one down,
Right.
two over, two over, one up, you will get, if you get the same repeated messages that way,
That's the thing.
that's a thing. Yeah.
I love that. The strength card, what does that mean to you?
That's an interesting card. I I I don't know whether to say, if that's a card about taming, or you're being tamed, or you're being strong enough to tame someone else or something else. To me, um, that beauty of that card is that when it's reversed, it can be an abuse of strength, or it can be, you know, yet upright. I think it
Well,
might
it's
still be one of those ones that you can read as a positive, and that could be faulty too, because I mean, she is kind of tugging at him, and she is, but animal rights aside, I don't, like, in that one, she's not. You know what I'm saying?
no.
In that one, she's not. He's
No.
clearly, or she's clearly, the more
See, but the
imposing.
thing
Yeah.
I read this is fear. Um, it takes a lot of strength for that lion not to rip that woman's face off.
See, now
It
that
takes
I never thought of. Yeah.
it takes a lot of strength. And I told Chris that the first time, Chris Butler, and he did the same thing. He's like, I never thought of it that way.
I never thought of it that way.
It
Yeah.
really, well, I have, I'm a Leo. That's why I thought of that. It takes a lot of strength for that lion not to rip somebody's face off. This is ruled by the sun. So when it's reversed, that sun could be burning you out. It could be frying you to a crisp. That's one interpretation. Um, where do you draw your strength from?
Where do I know my strength from? Probably my ability to be in darkness, I would say. My ability to write and clean myself out, and look at it and go, wow, I really thought that. I really believe this. It might not be the most pleasant thing, but at least it's I. And if I can make art of it, or I can, you know, if I can, and I've done this with some of the tarot cards, like on Tarot Your Ways channel, when he was doing, for my book now, and the one I'm gonna be writing, I'm doing reversals of cards, and then I'm writing stories. I'm not always stories, but poems about those. Creating is where I draw my strengths. Creating something out of either misery, or out of something where I didn't think something positive could be derived. Getting the surprise, getting the feeling that, wow, even in darkness, that there is light. Even in a speck of it. Even that there can be beauty in darkness. The idea that there's, the the the
The
dusk
darkness
before
can be
dawn.
beautiful.
So
The
the
darkness
darkness
is
itself can
beautiful.
be beautiful too. I think my
I'm all
challenge
defensive. The darkness can be beautiful.
my challenge is working on the shadow self. In a lot of readings that people have done for me, and I don't always do it. I should do it more, but I
My
don't.
challenge is the opposite. I've
Is it?
lived in the shadows my whole life. Um, my challenge is stepping out into the light now. And so I'm just
That's
the
that's a
opposite.
that's a very positive thing, right?
It
Or
can
is it
be,
tough?
because
Yeah.
when you've lived in darkness your whole life and you're used to the view there and you know how to make it heal you, and make you comfortable to finally step out into the public eye and
Hmm.
bring your gifts into the public. It's scary as frick. Um, I was terrified when I first started. I think if it weren't for Gerald, Chris, and Ken, um, I never would have continued with my channel. And Ramon, um, those four dudes right there just were s- supportive, and then everybody in chat, and was probably, I think, my first subscriber. Um,
What I like about the journey is that the more we appeal to others and the more we get more comfortable in our skin, the more inward we can go, personally. And what I mean by that is not that every reading you're going to do is going to resonate and have a lot of hits, but at least it's, as I said earlier, it's something that informs your
that's
character. Yeah, informs your character and informs something you need to do for yourself. Um, and if the question you ask has, as I said before, some type of ring with other people, then it'll be timeless, and that it won't matter if it's 5 years from now. If you're
Well, it
asking,
doesn't bother
yeah,
me if it doesn't resonate now. It really doesn't,
yeah,
because I started realizing it may not resonate with you right now. It
hmm,
may totally make sense with you next week. Um, and then you're gonna go, I get it. So it doesn't worry me too much if somebody's not resonating right now. I'll tell them, be on the lookout for. So there is that.
yeah.
As the Hermit card deals with Virgo, how do you spend your day when you're not online? Virgo is your day
Uh,
to grind,
I'm
your
always
day to
online. I
just.
mean, yeah, I'm sleeping, and
I know.
even when I'm sleeping, I still have YouTube, either politics or readers or whatever. Fall asleep to it, drop the phone on the floor to it. I'm eating a lot, clearly, or I'm eating a lot while I'm online. You can ask Hershey that. Um,
Big boys are sexy. You ought to see my
y-
husband. He's a big boy.
or or um, I'm trying to challenge myself to write and be in the silence, but even that lately is hard. Or I am meditating. Um, so, or I am chanting. I do a chakra cleanse in the shower,
Ooh,
and
that's a
I
good idea.
will chant 10. Where are they from? They're in Sanskrit. They're Sanskrit chants. I think they're Middle Eastern. I don't know. Like Wahe Gu. Like I will say that 10 or 15 times. Wahe Gu. I try to clear the energy during the shower and after the shower. Um,
I
you
just
know,
let the
an
goobers
Om
run out of my
Namo
body in the shower.
Gurudev Namo. Like I do that. Um, because again, the incantation and the way that you say something and what you put out there, it's so easy to just go into the dark thought and then spit the dark thought out. Well, guess what you become? And I do that. It's inevitable. But if I'm at least putting out the energy of cleansing, I'm trying, and I know how to do that. So that's what I spend time doing. Um, or I'm Sometimes it's weird. I get my downloads in the shower about things I want to read on, or I have a thought about it and I don't write it down in time, and then I'm like, damn it, or that's what I'm doing. Or something will come to me in a dream that I wish I had written down, and then damn, it's gone. I don't remember.
Been there.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember it. I don't think to read on it. I don't remember to realize that it was important to try to remember it because I'm trying to remember my dreams, or I get and it's probably tied to my sleep apnea, but I will get hits for like a brief second if I doze off. I'll get visions, and then I won't remember what the vision was. Or sometimes I will remember it, and I'll just talk about it on a live and read about it. So I'm always actively cultivating.
Is there such a thing as mukbang tarot your way? I don't know if that's. I can't eat around my cars. I get panicked. I'm going to get food on them. The Wheel of Fortune is our next card.
These are the hard ones for me. The Wheel of Fortune, the World, they're very difficult for me, and I still can't really figure out why. I think my tendency with them is to oversimplify them. Like the Wheel of Fortune, I want to say is about karma, but it's really not. It's really, to me, about, because I don't
Evolution.
know. And I don't necessarily know if something is fated, and that whole free will bit. If something is fated to be, how much of it is karma and how much of it is actually just what is fated? Or are we defining karma as something bad? The World, that one in particular, I find that one is the pause before the next thing. Like it's a delay. Or it's like that, especially if it comes before something else. It's more informing the card to the left of it. It's not about completion per se. I feel like it's about, maybe more if it's reversed, it's about a delay. But I feel like it's about that pause before the next thing, meaning like, I don't know how to explain it. When I look at that card, it feels to me like there's this suspended animation going on with it in the center, and I feel like everything around it is natural. It's what is meant to be, but maybe you can try to change it. But the universe knows you're going to try to change it. There's no going back from it. So I feel like that and the Wheel of Fortune are really on the heels of each other. Probably the most significant and probably the most lofty or weighty in terms of the meaning, that probably is harder to put into words than I'm not doing them justice at all, because I think I've seen them read so many different ways.
Yeah.
Depending upon the reader. So that's how I look at those two. I like the World better because it's kind of like the Hangman. Like when the Hangman is upright, they say it's about perspective, but when it's reversed, or if it's upright, some people see it as sacrifice, or like with the King or the King of Pentacles, when that's reversed, that's mercenary energy. I think the Hangman, when it's reversed, can be mercenary energy. So
any card can.
I'm saying, like, yeah, and that's the thing, is if something can be that all the time, that universality to me means almost like there's so much more depth. I mean, it's an oversimplification to where I don't feel like I'm doing it justice. And I look at it and I go, and that's probably why I don't get it, because my spirit guides don't give it a lot to me for some reason. They don't give it to me. I notice that the cards I resonate with and I feel like I can explain more, my guides seem to give those to me. I don't know if you find that to be the case, but
I can't remember how I used to be. Now, honestly, I could stare at a card that I've known for 40 years and know the ins and outs of. And if I'm in a reading and I'm trying to give a message and I'm staring at that card and I'm drawing a freaking blank and I have no hit, no remembrance of what the
really,
card's
yeah.
actual meaning is, nothing. Nothing sometimes. And when I'm faced with that, I'll back up and I'll readdress another card and ask questions on it to find out more
Hmm.
about it, because it's like until I get that squared away, I'm not going to be able to go forward. Um, and sure enough, as soon as I ask more about it,
It
suddenly,
clarifies itself to you. Yeah.
yeah,
I wish I had that. Yeah, because that's clearly, because even if it's not non-sequential, your guides are, or whoever it is, are pointing you in the direction that you need to go.
yeah,
So clearly you're doing it right. So
I hope so. I'm doing it for all the right reasons, I hope. Jeff, this went in a whole different direction than I was
yeah.
planning.
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't get to
sorry.
ask. No, I'm loving it. I love talking with you. In fact, we only got through half the cards. Would you be willing to come back with me next Monday and finish this?
I would.
All right. Stick around backstage because I want to chit chat with you a little more.
Okay.
Everybody, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We've been on for about an hour and a half now, and this is definitely a two-parter. So join us next week as we continue this. All right. Stay good to each other. Bye bye.
Can I just say you look so hot?